is 1623. The powerful religious faction in the Ottoman Empire, the Ulema, has gathered by the Fatih Mosque in Istanbul with one demand. They want the removal of the Grand Vizier, Mirre Huseyin Pasha. Before night settles, that won't be the only demand. An unexpected, more violent outcome will be met, free from negotiation. The man we'll come to know as Mirre was born in Peja in the mid-1500s, in Peja, Kosovo, presumably to a noble family. He was quickly taken into the famous Devshirme system of the Ottoman Empire. The system recruited European boys, mostly of Balkan descent, to train as soldiers or administrators for the empire. It would transform Mirre from a boy into a ruler. Trained as a Sipahi, Mirre began his career as chief cook before moving on to become a sergeant. It was then, during the series of campaigns known as the Long Turkish War, that Mirre witnesses moments of victory and stalemate. He first found mentorship under the guidance of Satirci Mehmed Pasha, but lost it when he is executed in 1599. He rises above this challenge and gets a promotion. He goes from the battlefield to the Sultan's palace. After Kara Mehmed Pasha became Grand Vizier in 1614, Mirre's title is Çavuşbaşı, or Deputy to the Grand Vizier. His various responsibilities range from security matters to accompanying ambassadors to the Grand Vizier. He later served as a Kathuda, and from there in the service of Bekir Pasha, who was the head of financial affairs. By this point, Mirre has acquired a healthy understanding of the inner workings of an empire. He will soon catch the attention of Sultan Osman II and gets the opportunity to rub shoulders with the pharaohs. Before we proceed any further, we must discuss his nickname Mirre. It's an Albanian word meaning to take or take it. Mirre would frequently yell this epithet to his guards when he wanted someone forcibly removed from his presence, permanently. When the guards heard this, they knew what to do. It is now August of 1620. Mirre has become governor of the largest administrative unit in the empire, a land where pharaohs once ruled, and history preserved in stone. The Ayolat of Egypt. He takes over the position from Hamidi Mustafa Pasha, who had started out as a good ruler, but began extorting locals and gained an ill reputation, and lures him to the estate of one Murad Pasha and corners him there. Mustafa is eventually allowed to leave, but according to sources, only for a price. Believing he is safely on his way to Istanbul, or so he thinks, as he leaves, a few of those that were wronged by him would like a word. He was beaten and robbed by them. Merre starts his governorship as a man of the people. Egypt is dealing with crisis after crisis. The Nile floods, harming wheat sales, and a plague strikes. But before Merre can put things in order, he falls ill for nearly 3 months and accomplishes little. He eventually recovers, however, and decides to hold a feast for his son's Hâtem, or circumcision, saying that all of Egypt should celebrate as if it was Eid al-Fitr. Expensive gifts from the upper echelon of Egypt come pouring in. If the gifts are not satisfactory, he sends them back awaiting yet more lavish gifts. Merre lets everyone know who rules Egypt. Merre removes unfair taxes set by the previous governor and starts to put governmental works in order, fixing problems such as food scarcity, inflation, and recovering from the recent plague. His actions are effective, but he faces criticism for his spending to fix those problems. He rules for almost 2 years and largely puts his affairs in order. In April of 1622, he is dismissed, having now amassed a great fortune. He can finally decide his own future. Upon hearing of his dismissal, a local extortionist and bully by the name Ba Amil al-Bahar badmouths Merre all over Cairo. Merre hears about it as he is about to depart. His financial officer questions him about thousands of unaccounted gold pieces. Merre says he is aware of the issue, in that he loaned the gold pieces to this well-known moneylender. Ba'amil responds that it was already paid back. Merre pays 25,000 gold pieces out of his pocket, on the condition that before he leaves, the moneylender is brought to him. The rough-mannered Albanian, as he was called, has one final gift for the people of Egypt. Taking the 25,000 pieces from Ba'amil al-Bahar by force, Merre proceeds to torture him to death. Thus he extorted the extortionist. Many rejoiced as this lender scammed and bullied many throughout Egypt. After Egypt, Merre is said to have been in Rumelia. However, in Istanbul the empire is falling into disarray, from power struggles extending from the military to religious factions. The tragedy of Sultan Osman II starts with a dream. Osman II asks various dream interpreters for advice, but doesn't receive a satisfactory answer. It will prove a foreboding omen. Osman II's uncle, Sultan Mustafa, a mentally unstable sultan, was looked at by Osman II and others as nothing more than a tool of the various factions in the empire, and was deposed in favor of his nephew, Osman II. Osman II's rule was not easy, however. The most accepted theory is that after his defeat by the Poles in 1621, Osman II made his pilgrimage to Mecca as a disguise to raise a new army to combat the Janissaries, who by now had gotten far too difficult to control. The Janissaries learned of the plot and revolted, deposing Osman II and reinstalling the former Sultan Mustafa. Osman II is tortured to death. he was only 17. Those responsible are eventually executed, but the unstable Mustafa is back on the throne. As the world watches the possible downfall of the Ottoman Empire, a young prince who will grow into an untamable lion also watches. Drama reserved for the stage outplays itself in Istanbul. Meanwhile, Merre decides to make his move for a place in history and makes his pitch to become Grand Vizier. Many are executed and bear the burden of any failures in the empire. However, if he gets the seal, he'll become the second most powerful man in the empire. Merre meets with the Grand Mufti in regular clothes, not to be noticed. He makes a promise that he will get the rebels under control and restore order if given the opportunity. The Grand Mufti writes an official note to the Sultan's mother, Valide Sultan, recommending Merre's assignment to the viziership, explaining how he can be used to restore the collapsed state order. Then the seal of viziership was taken from Davud Pasha and handed over to Merre Huseyin Pasha. He is officially announced as Grand Vizier on June 13, 1622. Many were surprised by this assignment, but no one of power objected to it, thinking maybe he can manage to rein in the soldiers. Although Merre would enjoy a clean sweep of the government, the best he can do without causing more turmoil was to put the majority of the issues on pause, calm down the revolts, and put the people at ease. Then he could make real changes. Merre reconvenes cabinet meetings which hadn't met due to the instability. He spreads money to the heads of the Janissaries and the Sipais to pacify and control them. He restarts the long-neglected weekly royal salutation ceremony of Friday prayer with the people, aiming to eliminate the negative comments and rumors about the Sultan and himself by reuniting the people. He removes the Aga of Janissaries, Dervish Aga, from his position and sends him into exile at Karaman. Hearing the news of their Aga's disappearance, Janissary soldiers start to speculate that Merre Pasha had killed Dervish Aga. They gather and send a letter to the Sultan asking for the removal and execution of Merre Pasha, writing, "Today Merre Pasha killed Dervish Aga. Tomorrow he'll kill us one by one." Merre is dismissed from the Grand Viziership after only 24 days. For once, he experiences failure. His diminishing power leaves him open to murder. And Dervish Aga, whom Merre was accused of killing, returns, promoted to Beyla Bey of Rumelia. It's obvious what took place now. Merre needs to regroup, and he does, finding a source of influence in his wealth. He spreads money around and gathers allies in the Janissaries and the Sipais. The new Grand Vizier, Lefkeli Mustafa Pasha, lasts 75 days and is replaced by Hadim Mehmed Pasha. The Janissaries, unhappy with the new Grand Vizier, are once again threatening revolt. They oppose his passive stance towards Abaza Pasha, who is revolting against the government and has killed Janissaries, ostensibly to avenge the death of Sultan Osman II. Finally, Janissaries meet with the new Janissary Aga to tell him they feel Hâtem Mehmed Pasha is incompetent and no longer want him as Grand Vizier. When asked who they did want, the historian Tugi tells us their reply was unanimous. We want Mere Pasha now. When Sultan Mustafa was told about this, he said whomever they choose, I'll elect as Grand Vizier. With that, Mere is given the seal and for the second time becomes Grand Vizier. Historian Behzad tells a slightly different version of the story, in which he says a janissary known as Suleiman the Albanian goes to the Grand Vizier Hâtem and tells him, "You've ordered the murder of some of our compatriots and shed their blood unjustly. We don't want you or anyone with that kind of unjust nature. If you don't resign, we will kill you and remove you from office." Upon that threat, the seal was handed to Mere Pasha. On February 3rd, 1623, Mere becomes Grand Vizier for the second time. Second chance he can't miss. He understands he needs to rule differently than before. He unites with the soldiers by going to military headquarters and breaking bread with them. He adorns the mosque they attended with rich rugs and tiles, prays with them, and even enrolls himself in the army to show his solidarity. He has the two previous Grand Viziers removed from the capital and promotes the formidable Mehmed Giray to Crimean Khanate. Out of respect for Osman II, he places his teacher Omer Effendi as the Mufti of Mecca. When a fire breaks out in the Nisanka district of Istanbul, close to the Janissary barracks, Mere compensates them for any damage. Later he goes to the headquarters of the Janissaries and tells the head cook, "Compatriots, please pray for the Sultan. If you are in need of flour or candles, take them as you wish from the royal warehouse. The Sultan does not need them." The soldiers respond with prayers for the Sultan and Mere Pasha, considering his gestures to be one of great respect. As a son of Peya, he doesn't forget his homeland and builds there a mill, an inn, a school, and a mosque. Mere's foes are not only domestic, but foreign. Thomas Roe was a British ambassador who dedicated more than a few words of contempt to Mere. Roe of the famed East India Company, whose trade was in silk, tea, cotton, and opium, referred to Mere as a tyrant hated of all men. Roe was upset with Mere because he had imposed a large fine on the Persian silk sitting on an English boat in the Ottoman docks. Roe demands and gets a meeting where he fires off. Mere doesn't give a shit about Roe's power or backing and has enough of his behavior.
Used me with great contempt and threatened to hang my secretary and dragoman if they spoke in my cause.
He throws the written complaints and plans to gather the ambassadors of France, Venice, and the Netherlands to demand Mere's removal or threaten trade. The Ottomans had worked out an agreement with Poland, which Roe had participated in. Roe was proud of his contributions to the agreement, but Mere castrates Roe's delights by making a couple of last-minute amendments to the deal's final draft, favoring the Ottomans. Although the prisoner release which Rome was to secure had not been effected. Trying to quell fiscal issues while simultaneously preserve the empire, an event takes place that will forever stain his reputation. The factional state has already reached its peak. Parties such as the religious scholars, military elite, and Valide Sultan are all pulling for power, and Sultan Mustafa, the crazy, has failed to act as an absolute ruler. The religious faction, called the Ulema, and made up of scholars, judges, and imams, had large sway over the day-to-day affairs of the state. Pechevi, Atai, and Chelebi all say the same thing. Merre had beaten a high-ranking jurist for unclear reasons. Word spreads to the Ulema, or religious hierarchy, who demands Merre's removal. Many scholars revolt, gathering in the Fatih Mosque. A former head jurist, Mevlana Bashi, writes a fatwa against Merre. The crowd demands the Grand Mufti to execute the order under Sharia law, to which he responds, as long as Merre Pasha is the vizier, and a new vizier is not appointed, we cannot judge him. I will go to the palace and meet with the Sultan. I wish I could take the seal of viziership from Merre and give it to someone else. If all goes as I want, I will bring Merre to your presence and read the accusations to his face. This way Sharia law can be executed. Merre soon gets the news regarding the accusations. Hearing the Grand Muftis is headed towards the palace to meet with the Sultan, he sends soldiers to confront them in the middle of the road. The soldiers read the royal order and for the moment manage to disperse the crowd at the Fatih Mosque. The Sultan and the Valide Sultan, also desiring the unrest to stop, send the Mufti of Istanbul, Hasan Effendi, and some representatives from the Janissaries to the Fatih Mosque to negotiate the situation. According to some sources, the Ulema had reached out to the rebellious Abbaza Pasha. As the crowd grows again, the scholars begin to show hostility to the Janissary representatives. The Janissaries demand the crowd disperse. Mevlana Bashi accuses the representatives of blasphemy and orders the crowd to stone them. When the heads of the Janissaries saw that they were stoning and beating the representatives, they quickly forward the information to the palace. As the sun sets, so does sanity. The order comes in. The Janissaries are to remove everyone near the Fatih Mosque. Mayhem ensues. There are at least 19 dead. The rebels, including Mevlana Bashi and Mevlana Sharif, are accused of attempting a coup. They are judged and exiled. Many religious scholars lose their jobs, titles, and will be insulted in public for many years to come. Merre becomes the scapegoat for it all.
The veriest villain that ever lived. If God had not prevented me, I hope to have the honor of deposing of at least one great vizier.
Thomas Rowe. Merre Pasha didn't recognize justice nor Sharia law in his second term as Grand Vizier. One day, he had beaten an officer whose rank was equivalent of Baylor Bey. Not satisfied with this, he'd beaten up a jurist, Perchevi, a stubborn Albanian, but was generally calm and not taking risks. Çelebi. Mere was appointed for his second term with the help of soldiers. In this term, he was as arrogant as a pharaoh and as cruel as Timur. Attai. He was a saint in Egypt. Çelebi. For many years, Baghdad was under the control of the Janissary soldiers, using their power as leverage against the governor. Meanwhile, the affairs were handled by an ignorant man like Mere Pasha. He ordered the governor of Diyarbakir, Huseyin Pasha, to immediately eradicate those who were not obeying the governor of Baghdad, Perchevi. Frustrated with the factional tendencies plaguing the empire, the constant pandering to the soldiers and an incompetent and mentally ailing Sultan Mustafa I, Mere makes a move that will rock Istanbul. Mere decides to overthrow the Ottoman government. His enemies already have his ears ringing enough to shake the former bells of the Hagia Sophia. If he pulls this off, Ottoman historians will fight over the ink to criticize him. His plan is to remove Sultan Mustafa and replace him with Murad IV, who was only 11 at the time. But his mother would be de facto ruler, while he would have the independence of a true Grand Vizier to finally bring order. Although trained as a Sipahi, he is now closer with the Janissaries. His plan is to hold a fake ceremony for the upper echelon of the Sipahis. Janissaries and Bostanchi soldiers are placed in the palace until the ceremony is over to ambush the Sipahis. Then Phase 2 will begin. The removal of Mustafa I. Everything is put together. The only thing left is to pull it off. However, because of the festival of sacrifice, Eid al-Adha, the plan is slightly postponed, obviously not wanting violence during the holiday. This would prove costly. During the festival, soldiers start talking about the plan and rumors quickly spread. Although Mere's main backing is the Janissaries, they can only do so much. The Sipahis hear about the plan, and Mere becomes a wanted man. He refuses to give over his seal of Grand Vizier. Instead, he is convinced to resign and is imprisoned. He is then bailed out by the Aga of the Janissaries and goes into hiding. He is replaced by Huseyin Pasha, and he does what Mere tried to do. Mustafa I is removed, and Murad IV is the new Sultan, without bloodshed. Huseyin is himself executed. Mere Pasha is executed on July 24th, 1624. Bostanzad Yaha Effendi says that although he was somewhat of free will, Mere acted smartly in state affairs and didn't allow disorder and riots during his administration. When Murad IV comes of age to rule, he dismantles the factional system and purges the empire of over 500 individuals, including, and for the first time in Ottoman history, the Grand Mufti. He is now absolute ruler and finally brings order to the empire. Is it possible Mereh's thinking influenced the new sultan? From a humble beginning in Peya to governor of Egypt, two-time Grand Vizier, from a cook to the second most powerful man in the Ottoman Empire, he ruled in a most difficult time, but risked it all to bring absolute order. Respect is finally due to Mereh Huseyin Pasha.
Mereh!
Thanks for watching Mereh's story. One of the many battles Mereh faces is with the factional state. Essentially, during the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, the empire's factions start to grow, lessening the power of the Sultan. In Mereh's time, it's out of control. There is the military faction, the Ulema, and the faction of the mother of the Sultan. Mereh needs to please all these factions while trying to solve the empire's problems. Despite suggestions online, there is no mention of Mereh's family in Peya. It's presumed he came from a noble family or at the least of good stock. Mereh's tombstone is said to be in the enormous Karachemit cemetery. We think we've narrowed it down to a possible section. We hope to find it in the future. We came across one document that mentions Mereh's son, Ismail Bey, requesting some of Mereh's properties as a trustee after his father's execution. Abaza Pasha was a major problem for the empire. Abaza starts a rebellion and kills many janissaries. Mereh attempts to negotiate with him, but not much is mentioned about it. Abaza will be executed during the reign of Murad IV. Finally, if it weren't for the historian Tugi, who knew Mereh personally and witnessed the events, there wouldn't be much good to say about him. Thanks to some fragments of truth in modern scholar, Fikret Serika Oglu was soon realized Mereh was mistreated by historians, mostly because of the Fatih Mosque incident. Hopefully in some way, we cleared his name and showed the difficulties he faced while trying to maneuver and battle on all fronts. To paraphrase Shalabi, Mereh ruled in a difficult time that very few could understand.